Hi,
Hey,
welcome to Author's Chaos. I'm SF Rogers,
and I am DL Golden.
and today we're going to talk about Daniel, or DL, is finally published. He is
I
published. His book is
am.
out. Do you want to say anything before we get started?
Yeah, I'll throw that disclaimer on the front. Neither one of us does this professionally, so take whatever advice we give with a grain of salt. Um, we will try to give the best advice possible, the things that have worked for us, but like I said, it's not a cure-all for everybody, so just a heads up.
That's right. That's right. Okay, super stoked.
Right.
I read your whole book. I read your whole book, and I am so excited for all the people to get to read it too. Like, I told a friend of mine at work, I was like, he floored me with the way he wrote. And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, as a kid that I knew, right, growing up, that you
Mhm.
didn't like reading, like you didn't like books.
Yeah.
Reading your book felt it didn't feel like I had to trudge through anything. There weren't chapters where I was like, this is useless.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
why are we doing this thing? It flowed very well, and I was super excited. How does it feel though to say that you're published, you have a book?
Really good. It's really weird to say that I'm an author and I have a book out there. I have a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it's so cool that you published something." I'm like, I don't feel like I did all that much. But I mean, I did. I had to go through the whole self-publishing process and the editing process. It's been a almost 3 year journey now of doing stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's wild to think that I'm finally at the end. And I think when I was writing it, I thought when I finish this, it's going to be the thought will be done and it'll be complete and finalized, and that'll be it. And then my brain's like, sequel. So here I am, just running through more narrative in my head as we speak. So
As a reader, I am super stoked to hear that you are already thinking about next story,
right.
because I'm going to reread it. Like, it's a book. I am really bad about, like, I will like a book and I'll read it once, and because I've read it, I won't read it again. But
Hmm.
there's other books like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter that I've read multiple times, and your book definitely is on that list of, like, I will probably read it 1,000 times. Like, it's fresh, right? Like, it feels super fresh. It's not an idea that's been shoved down my throat a million times in different ways, or like a Beauty and the Beast thing or whatever
Yeah,
trope. Like, you took something and you made it your own, and that, I think that's why it feels so good to read. So I'm super super excited
I'm
for
very
you.
glad to hear that. Thank you.
Um it's I told Davey the other night, my husband, that I like stopped in the middle. I think I was like in 21 or 22,
Hmm.
and I looked at him and I said, I don't know what's going on. And he goes, "You're reading the book." And I said, I don't know what's going on. I was like, I have to reread this chapter because I don't know if I read that right. And he's like, you probably did read it right. Your brother probably just threw you a curveball. And I said, yeah, a fast one.
It gets really quick there at the end. It feels like that it spirals out really fast once you get to those final chapters. So
But I think that's spiraling out pretty fast, even with the way that you have your main character kind of, he's lost, right?
mhm.
Like, for a lot of it, he's lost. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't remember. He's just thrown into this world where he's like, y'all, this is not normal. This is
Right.
not normal. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's very
Uh
fish out of water.
yes, very much so. And then at the end, all of a sudden, like, he's able to step into this version of him that, like, at the beginning you kind of see glimpses of, but you see him step into this, and then the like the whole end, I was just like, could not stop reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I never saw this, because I'm really good, right, at like
Hmm.
context clues and like putting things together, because I've read so much. I'm like, oh, this is foreshadowing. I know what this is. There was a
Right.
moment in your book where I was like, how did I miss all of this?
Right. Well,
How did
and
I miss all of this?
that's funny because that's what Emily said to me too. She said that the initial idea of what she thought it was when she started was nothing like what she thought it was when she finished it. And she's like, it
Yeah.
just went a completely different way that she didn't expect. And she said she enjoyed that. It's just normally she'll be able to peg stuff down as this is going to happen next, this is going to happen next. And she did call a few of
Mm-hmm.
those twists out, but
Right.
some things did surprise her. And that surprises me because I don't generally catch her off guard.
Well, the and I'm trying not to give away
Right,
spoilers, right? Because I
exactly.
want the people who are reading this to like watch it. But I must say, I agree with her. I This book ended up being something totally different than what I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
And even so, like, you had sent me like the first couple of chapters months
Yeah.
ago while you were still editing. And I had read through that first and half of the second chapter and was like, okay, I know how this is going to go. Like, it's a hero thing, like da 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 da. And then I get into the book and I'm like, I could not have been more wrong about my brother's writing. Like, I could not have been more wrong. Like, it's super good, Daniel, and I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
But with it being published, how have you been advertising, and has that been like a difficult process?
So it's been very tricky. A lot of my advertising I've been doing through TikTok. I noticed that I can get a large audience of indie authors and readers through there to comment on stuff. And that just, it takes time to grow that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've tried my hand at advertising through Amazon's ads on there, and they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of complicated, and I've had a lot of impressions, but no clicks so far. So I'm trying to
Okay.
navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've had a lot better success when I can just talk face to face with people and say, "Hey, this is what my book's about. Here's
Right.
here's a 30-second snippet of something that you could expect or something that you might be interested in." I've heard
Right.
a lot of people talk about advertising through other social media, Facebook, things like that, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't paid a whole lot for that stuff. So,
Right. Well, I know we picked up. I'm sorry. I think you can hear my dogs.
yeah, a little bit. It's all right.
Um, I know like the four of us that are related in authors, like we've picked up a Reddit, we've done art, we're like
Hmm.
designing our website and all that stuff, and I know that that helps. Um, is there anything like that you would have recommendations for another author to like get started earlier on TikTok? Maybe like in the midst of writing, sharing snippets or lines, because I've seen some authors on TikTok like share
Hmm.
one or two lines from their two main characters or whatever with a background and music just to kind of get people hyped for it. Would you suggest people get started earlier?
Yeah, I think a big part of my issue is I did not get started early enough. I did not start really advertising until I had put the book up on Amazon and it was already available. I mean, I may have had a
Okay.
few days beforehand, through Facebook and stuff like that, but really I didn't start the TikTok until a day or two before it actually went live. And
I start to say you had your cover and everything nailed down, I
it was
think, when I
already
saw your
ready.
first TikTok.
Yeah, and I think that get started early and get the word out there. Even if you don't have anything published, if you say, "Hey, here's a snippet from my work in progress that I can throw out there," I think that can get the hype
Mm-hmm.
built up a little bit. Um, the
Mm-hmm.
big issue with things like TikTok are that if you don't have a large amount of followers to start, your content is tends to be capped at what
Yeah.
views you kind of get unless people really comment on stuff. And it's
Right.
like if you're below 5,000 followers, you tend to be capped in this weird 200 view window
Yeah, it's weird.
that you
Yeah.
can't get out of. And I think that the best way to avoid that is to start advertising early and tell people, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is the process I'm going through." So when you get to getting that cover art, you can post it up and do that screaming, "Oh my gosh, I've got this figured out" thing. And people
Right.
react really well to that. I've noticed that I've used like some trending TikTok stuff like from CapCut that work well, just to
Mm-hmm.
get small bits of notifications, small bits of notoriety from people. But I noticed
Right.
my biggest ones have been like when I opened up my author's copies and was able to be like, "Hey, I might be giving some of these away. Please comment and let me know." And that has built that
Mm-hmm.
stuff up. I think you can't. hurt yourself by starting early. I think a lot of my
Right.
thing was that if this wasn't going to come of anything, I didn't want to be embarrassed that nothing came out. Right. And
Yeah.
I think it's putting that fear aside and saying, okay, I'm doing this regardless of whether people love or hate, whatever it is.
Right.
I need to put some effort into doing that. And I think like for you, I know you're in the process of your first draft and beta readers and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I would start
Mhm.
early. Start harvesting
Okay.
TikTok followers, start getting page followers, things like that as quick as possible,
Mhm.
and just build up that hype over time because it does take time. So,
Well, one thing that I've seen that helps, especially on my author's TikTok. So I have like my original TikTok that I started
mhm,
when TikTok first got big.
right.
But I started my author's TikTok, and I got in on the side of Book Talk where it's like follow party. If you have less than 1,000 followers,
Yeah.
repost this video, comment how many followers you have. If someone follows you, follow them back. And I'm getting a lot of other authors to follow me, but I've also noticed that I've gotten some book talkers,
Mhm.
some people who are like recommending books on Book Talk
Yeah.
to like comment good luck or following or whatever back on those reposts of videos. And I think that that's also something to like, if you can get a follow chain, and
Mhm.
it sounds so campy to even say that, but if you
Right.
can get a follow chain going and just get your name out there.
Yeah.
Like I posted my first TikTok on that page was just a pan video where we're creating our website, and I said three siblings working together to create our author's website. And I had an author actually comment on my video, and she said, how cool is it that you all three are related and get to enjoy this time together? And like, I don't think we realize how significant that is, that there's
Right.
four of us in one family who
It's
are
strange,
writing.
right?
I think sometimes we just, because we like to write and because of who dad is as a reader, books have just always kind of been a thing. And then, but the fact that the four of us all kind of write in that fantasy, they're not the same.
Yeah. Not even
Because, like,
close. No.
obviously, not even close to the same, but we're all so supportive of each other. I think that's also going to help. So, I think one of my suggestions would be to like find people to help kind of be your hype man,
Yeah.
because I did not feel like what I wanted to write was going to be good. And then the more that I've talked to you and C Britt and JC Bryce, the more I'm like, hey, maybe I can hang with these people who are already published. Like maybe I can do this
Right.
thing.
Well, and a lot of it is finding that support system. You talked
Hmm.
about follow chains through TikTok, and there are a lot of those that go on. I noticed
Hmm.
that I started following basically every book talk group I could find.
Yeah.
And then like I was at least double people I was following to people I was that were following me. But all of a sudden, after a few TikToks that have gotten larger, my that number has shrank. So I'm following like 700 people. I'm up to 500 followers myself that
Yeah.
are following me
Yeah.
now that are not just book talkers or TikTokers. One thing to note about like TikTok though is that you want to generate content that is not just going to receive likes. Likes are like that lowest echelon of that pyramid you want to get.
You want it shared.
You want people to favorite it, you want people to comment on it. If you can get people to interact with it and comment on it or stitch it, then it can really take off. I notice the more
Hmm.
comments I get, the more it bumps up. I mean, I got 3 comments initially on me opening my author's copies, and the views immediately went up to almost 600 views. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it just, you've got to know what you're doing. And a lot of people will just make the cap cut things because they're afraid to show their face. They don't want to do that vulnerable stuff, but you've got to put a face to the name a lot of times and
Right.
give
Right.
content that is not the same regurgitated stuff over and over and over again. I guess is a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
it.
No, I agree. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. How have your sales been? Because the last time I talked to you, you'd sold 10 books,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, so I am up to 12 confirmed. I had someone else say that they had purchased it, so I'm sitting on a pending 13. And
Okay.
I tend to be hard on that number, but it's I've got to remember that it published less than 2 weeks ago. Um,
Boy, you
right?
have. I.
And building up a following of people that are not just friends and family buying it, it
Right.
has been interesting. Um, I don't think that my sales are astronomical, but I've made more money than I had made on it at all with it sitting in my computer, you know?
True.
And so it's one of those things that people have enjoyed it. People have talked about how much they love the characters and love the story. And it's just really cool to me, whether I have made money or not on it, that people really can relate to something that I created and put out into the world.
Right. How important are reviews on like Amazon and Goodreads?
Fairly
Are
important.
those important?
Yeah, because the first thing you're going to do when you go onto Amazon is check the price and check the reviews on something.
Right.
If there is a garbage review floating around, it can really hamper the sale of an item. And I think reviews
Mm-hmm.
and purchases tend to move things up in like rankings, and that can get your book showed to more
Right.
people.
Right.
Goodreads is a really good one because it's run by Amazon. Um,
Yeah.
I've heard reviews are very important. I don't have very many, but the thing to shoot for is to ask for, if people read it, just to ask them to review it honestly. You're not looking
Yeah.
for yes men at the end of the day. If you want to become a better
Right.
writer, if you want to people to actually want to read your book, you want honest reviews. If that gets you a
Right.
3.5 rating, then that gets you a 3.5 rating. But
True.
it's better to have those than to just have people say, yes, 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 this is so good. It's the best thing I've ever read.
Well, then
When,
it feels like a fake.
yeah, exactly. There's no criticism to it, and that's bad. I think reviews are very important. I don't have very many to speak of as of right now, because most people just recently started getting the book. I think you're the first person to actually finish through it. But I think once more finish it, I should have some feedback and reviews that then I can use to better my
Right.
writing in the future, hopefully.
Well, and not only that, but the Elias said that honest reviews push the algorithm to show your book to more
It does,
people
yeah,
on Goodreads and on
yeah,
Amazon. So there's our shameless plug for like, please review our books.
right,
Even if you hate the book, just leave a review, like
right.
leave an honest review about what you changed. Okay. There's our
Yeah,
shameless plug for
and
that.
that all has to do with Amazon rankings. They tend to rank books by number for how many are in that
Right.
genre. And so
Right.
getting those reviews can really help to bump those in the rankings and get your book more noticed. So,
Well, talking about genre, what would you classify Origins as? Now that I've read it,
yes.
I would change it. I would change it.
Yeah.
I
I
would.
I would not see that's the thing I'm having. It's a hard thing calling it fantasy because it is very specifically science fantasy. And so
Mm-hmm.
it has these magical elements, but there's also very scientific stuff that's going on throughout the story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and as you get to the end, it becomes more apparent. And I think the second book, Odyssea, will be more science based because you're going to get more of that information around all the stuff that's going on
Yeah.
without spoilers. You're going to get a lot more
Yeah.
of
Like I'm trying really hard to like
that.
skate around that because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I would not as someone who has finished the book and who is going to read it again, I would not say that you are a fantasy like mine is a
No.
fantasy
And
adventure, right? Like it's
this stems back to the conversation we were having last time. Um,
mm-hmm.
High fantasy and fantasy stories are not the same thing.
Yes, two different things, right?
And whereas your story is heavily influenced by works like Lord of the Rings or
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Fae lore that you've talked about, mine
Yeah,
is heavily, and I'm sure you can feel it, heavily influenced by anime and manga and
in games.
games. And so it's very easy to tell that they are different things. And when Perky asked me, he said, okay, what is your genre? And I said, it's got to be science fantasy. That has to be what it is because
Yeah,
it's a hybrid of the two. I would not call it science
it's
fiction.
like a science fiction. It's not science fiction, but
It's
it
also
breaches
not
that
fantasy
subject
either.
of science fiction.
Yep.
It's also not fantasy. It's fault. I think science fantasy is the best kind of high. sci-fan instead of sci-fi,
Right?
right? Like
Yeah.
a hybrid of that. It's really good though.
Yeah. I think that's the trick is it's really weird because they're like, what do you want to place it under on genre on Amazon? And I'm like, well, fantasy is probably the closest. It is a fantasy story,
Yeah.
but it is not the kind of fantasy story you may be expecting, if that makes
Right.
sense.
And there is a twist at the end.
There is definitely a twist at the end. And
So,
maybe next time we can do a spoiler
well,
section in
and
Q&A if you'd like.
maybe we'll make it like 2 weeks out. That gives more people more time to read it,
Right.
and then we'll just put a lot of
Well,
warnings on it of
we can
like
plaster with the spoiler
spoiler
tag,
alert,
you know.
spoiler alert,
Yeah.
spoiler alert.
Right.
So where can people pick up your
So
book?
my book is available on Amazon solely at the moment. It is out for expanded distribution, so it's possible that it may appear in some bookstore somewhere. I don't know anything about that. But as of right now, it is available on Amazon. You can get it in ebook and in print. Um, the print version looks like this beautiful thing right here.
The print's pretty
It looks
legit.
really good. I'm very happy with it. But the other way is through Kindle Unlimited. It is free through the Kindle Unlimited service, so that's really cool for people who
Okay.
have done that, and I get paid royalties per page on that. So
Okay, cool. Um, I had someone actually ask me, and I was going to ask you, uh, audiobook. Have you even thought about having someone record it
so
for an
I
audiobook?
have considered, but as you know, all these things cost money to have produced and
Yeah,
do. After purchasing the cover for costs that I've had and things like that, I haven't made my money back on what I have put out, so
right.
I have not like legitimately considered it. But if it starts selling well, if it makes money, and if I feel like it will be profitable to do that, I may put it out in audiobook form because I am an audiobook listener. I do it passively generally, more than I actively read anything. So I
Right.
have thought about it. I haven't found a justification for doing so until it starts getting a little bit bigger, and I do see that happening. So.
Well, so the last time I read Lord of the Rings, I actually listened to Andy Serkis's
Mm-hmm.
voice recording, like his version, because he's Smeagol, but he does such a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at work, I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff. And when someone was like, is DL going to have it in audiobook? I was like, I sure hope so.
Right.
Because I do want to be able to go back and listen to it and all
I
that.
really
So,
have considered it. I love the idea of audiobooks because it just makes it so much more accessible for those people that are not avid readers. And it's
yeah,
not like it's a dauntingly long book to begin with, but
right.
it's just sometimes you want something you can throw in your headphones while you're mowing and listen to, and
Just listen to.
I would
Hmm.
love to do it, but it's going to need to see more growth before I can justify that cost, if that makes sense.
Oh, I get that. I get that 100%. So, what's one question that you've probably gotten the most since publishing your book?
Um, the biggest question I've had is what is it about? And it's always so hard for me to explain to people because most people that know me don't know that I enjoy writing. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I'm super gung ho about because I'm busy with a lot of other stuff most times. But when I get that question, it's always like, well, there's this guy and he's got a book, and I tend to just jump around it. But I think to legitimately answer that question, it's really a fish out of water story set in a fantasy world where literary books have become these magical tomes and they grant these incredible powers to people, and there's twists and turns and all kinds of fun to be had there. So I don't have a whole lot else to add to
I
it.
I almost I almost thought that your most asked question was going to be, why is there a dinosaur on the front?
I, surprisingly, no. No, I've had a lot of people who are like, I
That's
love the
surprising.
dinosaur. And I'm like, yeah, me too. That's why it's there. Um, and I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just a dinosaur kid who let his imagination get the better of him. Um,
Well, it's
So
runaway daydreams,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And I've been stuck on that because that's exactly what it has become. It was sitting in student teaching one day, listening to them read some excerpt from Walden, and my brain falling out somewhere along the way and finding some path that led down to this, and so it's
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 crazy.
crazy. It's absolutely crazy that it has manifested into this 220 page, whatever it is, book, 240. And I can't believe it's come that far. That's wild to me. Absolutely wild.
It's I am I just want to just reiterate that again. I am so stinking proud of you.
Thank you.
And like as I got to the last pages of the book, and I do this a lot. I get to the last pages and I have to slow myself down because I know like the end is coming,
Right.
right? And I literally like stopped before the last page and I looked at Davy and I was like, I don't know that I'm ready for this adventure to be over, and I'm going to have to wait for him to actually start the second book. He goes, how long is that going to take him? I said, 3 years. That's how long this one took. It's
Well,
going to take him 3 years.
I
I'm going to
am
have to wait.
I am 2 chapters deep on the sequel already, 2 or 3,
Woohoo!
and so it won't be that long. With me being off in the summer and me focusing on it, it'll help a lot. Uh, I just I I can't thank people enough. The After announcing that I was even putting it out, there was such an outpouring of love and commitment
Right.
to try and get it and try and read it, and so much excitement about it. And it's like, I didn't think anybody would care. Honestly, I thought it would get, a few likes here and there, and it has taken off pretty well, and it's really great to see. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I know this episode's not as long as our last couple, but I don't want to take away from the fact that like we're super excited for you, and I'm super excited to see what happens to Cy and Charlie in the next
Well,
book.
and I
I
have
cannot
to
wait.
ask before we finish this, what did you think of the epilogue there? You got to the end of the story, and you run into the epilogue. Did you see me revisiting that point, or had you thought I'd left that to sit?
I I I honestly reread the epilogue like twice because all of me was like, where's he going?
Right.
Like, where is he going? And knowing what I know now,
Mhm.
it now raises questions about certain characters and the way that they acted
Mhm.
because it paints them in a different light because I don't see them the same way I saw them when we first got introduced to them.
Mhm.
There was a character, and I vividly remember talking to you about this character. And halfway through, I was like, I just want this guy not alive anymore. Like, I don't want him around. I don't want to hear about him. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, so maybe I was wrong about said character. And I like that though,
Mhm.
right? Because I didn't expect it. I didn't expect to like him and to relate to why he was doing what he was doing.
Mhm.
um it it's hard for me because I feel like I get a thought of what a character is and I make that assumption.
Mhm.
I've read enough books to like, okay, you're a bad guy, like you're a bad guy, you have no real reason
Right.
to not or to ever be a good guy again. And then like as I read, my heart changed for that specific character. And I think because in real life I've seen people fall prey to certain
Mhm.
things. It definitely like reminded me of a lot of stuff that I'd seen in personal experience with people where like, okay, they're not really what they show on the outside.
Mhm.
There's something else going on that's the driving force. So it was cool for me in that epilogue to like second guess what I
Right.
thought about certain characters and be like, okay, hold on a minute. Hold on a
Yeah.
minute. So I'm super excited for your second book though. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what happens with said
Yeah.
characters.
And like I said,
So
we can go full spoiler mode next time if we want to do that. But
I'm game. I will even pull out my book and like read you
Right.
sections that I have questions about.
Right, absolutely. I'm happy to answer those. But yeah, I want to say thanks, guys, to anybody who has picked it up and read it, to anybody who has had criticisms or said that they enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. It means a lot. It really does. So I think we're there.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening to us. We super appreciate it. In the description, I'm going to drop our new Reddit thread because we have one of those. I will drop the link to DL's book. Um, I will drop the link to DL's TikTok. I will drop the link to DL's Facebook page. Give him a follow, like what he's doing, share his videos, comments on it. Obviously, help us all out. I will put my links down in the description below as well, and you guys can just have a heyday on our subreddit. I have posted at least once just like random writing, random thoughts on there. Daniel has a about the author. Our sister-in-law JC has about the author on there, and then our sister C Britt also has about the author on there about her books, and it's kind of the hub where you're going to be able to find all the things about our books going on. And then once we get our website published, we will share that as well. But you can also find all of these episodes on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Amazon Music, and you can find the episodes on the Reddit.
Yep.
So we are doing all the things to get us out there. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. Origins is available on Amazon now, and I guess we'll talk to you guys next time.
See you next
Bye.
time.